Thanks, everybody. It's great to see such a great turnout. I wanted to thank the Darien and Buchanan Chamber of Commerce for the free dinner, buffet dinner afterwards. They'll be throwing to get this kind of a crowd. Since there are a lot of you here, it occurred to me.
We have some people sitting down.
Sure.
You like to sit? Because there's room down here.
You can sit down at any time. Since there are a lot of you here, my guess is that there might be a bit of a range in terms of people's learning curve with the internet and websites and social media. And so I want to make sure that I speak to all of you in that regard. So I'm going to ask a few questions that I'd just like you to raise your hand on so I can sort of see where the room is. How many of you have a website for your business? Okay. I'm going to talk about the subject of social media. I'm going to ask, it falls into three segments. If you think you're actively involved, somewhat involved, not involved, but interested. Who would consider themselves actively involved in social media? Okay. Who would consider themselves infrequently involved in social media? And who's not involved, but interested? Okay, great. Okay. Okay, one last question. Who's realizing any money or revenue for their business from any of the online or social media efforts that they're doing? Great, great. So you can see by the show of hands that some people fall into each group. And so what I wanted to do to sort of try to speak to everybody was use a lot of examples tonight. Use case studies. Some are my clients, some are actually, I've written a lot of case studies, and that's one of the things that I teach about. And something really interesting has happened, is that when I write about these things on the internet, the people, the businesses that I write about, many like yours, they write back. And so I've been able to meet people because they've reached out and thanked me because they found out that on the internet, you know, somebody's writing about them. I've met people from Milwaukee, from Chicago, from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, from the Netherlands, and from Korea. And they've all sort of said, you know, and I've gotten to learn a little bit about the business that I researched on the internet from them personally. So a lot of this is going to be really from the idea of people who've actually done it. And so I'm also going to try to do tonight's presentation using the internet, which I hope cooperates. But what I want you to all know, regardless of where you are in your learning curve, is that tonight is not a presentation about you have to remember a lot of stuff, you have to know how to tweet and post on Facebook by the time this is over. You just need to know, because all of these case studies have one thing in common that is common to your business right now. And what I'm going to prove to you is that the real important thing that's important with all of these online case studies and how your business is going to succeed on the internet is this fact. People like to do business with people they know. And so all you're trying to do with your business and your website and social media is to bring out your business and who you are as a person and why people would want to do business to you. And that's why, and that's really what you're going to learn tonight. I'm going to give you a start with a couple of facts to say why you might be here, because people are getting to know you on the internet. Did you know that 90% of your purchase decisions now start on the internet? And that 80% of traffic to a website starts because somebody has an unmet need for a product that your website and your business can serve. And that 75% of people, even if they're looking offline for something, will research that product online. And what they're looking for is the recommendation from somebody that's used the product before. And 4 out of 5 times, they'll even trust that person's recommendation, even if they don't know that person, compared to less than 1 in 5 times when they'll trust it if it comes from an ad. To just kind of bring those numbers to life, let me tell you a story of how those numbers kind of influenced the recent purchase that I bought. I'm a biker, and I decided that since the spring weather was coming, I was going to buy a bike. And I hadn't bought one in 15 years, so first thing I did was I went on the internet and I sort of searched. One thing about bikes since I last bought one is they cost a pretty wide range. They can cost anywhere from $500 to $5,000. And so I decided that I needed to kind of set a budget and start to look for one. And so I went on the internet, and just like you might, I typed in the search box on Google, best bike under $1,000. And so about 4 or 5 different bikes came up, and I thought, well, for that amount of money, I can get a pretty good bike. And with one of the reviews, they said, now's a good time to buy because you can still get one of the 2011 models before all the 2012 comes, and that'll save you a little bit more money. So I felt already, by going from consideration, a little bit more motivated to buy by being on the internet. And so then I thought, well, where am I going to buy this bike? Well, I thought, finding the bike was pretty easy, so I went, best bike shop in Fairfield County. Well, the best bike shop in Fairfield County wasn't in New Canaan, it wasn't in Darien, it wasn't in Greenwich, it wasn't in Westport. It was in a town called Paulding, New York. And the reason why that bike store was in Paulding, New York was because of what I typed. Because the first, in the top 2 positions on search, on Google, the first one was a review from somebody who had been there from a service called Yelp. We're all familiar with Yelp? And first words from that review, best bike store in the New York, Connecticut area. Almost what I typed. He told me that the owner was passionate about bikes, he really cared, he'd take good care of you. And then the second one was his bike store. First thing on his website was best prices in Connecticut, New York, 2011 closeout still available. So I called him up, I decided, so before I even got in the car, I was 80% sure I was going to buy the bike. And so I went up to see him, and he was very busy that day. I guess there was a bike race the next day. And he said, wait a second, I'll take care of it. It was Friday afternoon. And he knew everybody. He kept kind of saying, how was your ride? Where, when you went out the other day, how did you like that hill? And so I asked him after I bought the bike, I said, how do you know your customers so well? And he said they all carry their phones with them now. And they have apps on the phone. And so they can record their rides. When they get back from their rides, they go to a website, they put in exactly where they went. It measures the ride, it measures how many calories they burned, it measures what the elevation was. And so basically, from the internet, I made an entire decision on how to buy a product. Essentially, all of these numbers kind of verifying what happens now. So where I'm going with this is that the use of the internet is really a different way for you to market yourself. Because what's changed is the way we used to think about our businesses is it was a monologue. And we would always kind of talk about our businesses, we would talk about what the benefits of the product were, and if we found that if we weren't getting through, we would talk louder and we would talk more. But now, the internet, Facebook, Twitter, blogs, they're really publishing tools. They're the opportunity for you to talk about your business, to publish your business, but it's a different type of marketing. It's a communication. And the benefit is that you can have a one-to-one relationship with your customers if you listen to them. So I'm going to give you the 6 most important takeaways from this session now. I'm not going to wait and build it up to the end. This is the roadmap to being successful, in my opinion, on online marketing. And to practice what I preach, I'm going to put my own business out there and tell you a little bit about myself. Hopefully this will work. So this is my company website. It's a pretty simple website, and our company makes our money in 3 different ways. One is that we have about 6 businesses that we do online marketing for. We build websites, we do search engine optimization, and many of them are in this area. They're companies like yours. We'll talk about them tonight. One is an interior designer, a high-end interior designer in Westport, Connecticut. Another is a skincare company, which I even have some colleagues here that I work with on Topanic Road in Darien, a Paris-based skincare company. We run their e-commerce business. Another is a media company in Stamford, Connecticut called Penton Media, which we've done e-learning courses for. So basically, we we're in the thick of helping businesses market themselves online. I also teach. I'm on the MBA faculty at Rutgers. Rutgers is one of the first universities, I'm told, to have a digital marketing and social media marketing MBA program. And I also work with some large companies where basically my role is, they're so confused about all the data that there is on the internet, is that I do things like ROI modeling and everything else, but really what I do is I walk in the door and they shake my hand and they say, Rob, what do we do with all this data? And so that's my business. My website is pretty simple. It's really just 5 pages, but I have something where people can get to know me, because people like to do business with people they know, and that's my blog. I also have a way here. My website is called Barn Raisers LLC. I have an email newsletter, which you all could get a copy of if you wanted to. And I also have, I'm also connected from my website to the social networks. Now, how am I doing in this? Well, let me show you a tool that you all can use if you don't know about it. There's a little tool out there that kind of tells you what's important if you have a website. And the first thing about your website is that you should know, rule number 1 of our 6 steps, is you should know why your site exists. My site exists for 3 reasons. One is that I need to generate a lot of traffic to it, because out of every 2,000 people that I might generate, I'll probably get 1 or 2 clients. And in a way, that model is probably not too dissimilar from a lot of businesses on the internet. Because really, most of the people that read a website fall in, there are 3 types of people. There are the skimmers. They read your website really quickly. There are the researchers. They kind of want to get to know your website a little bit more, but they have no intention of using your services. And then there are the buyers. Now, I put out a lot of information for researchers and skimmers, but actually, and you might say, well, why do you do that? Don't we all just want the buyers? Well, actually, the researchers and the skimmers actually help spread the word. If they like you when they come back, they actually build awareness to your website. So you really need to kind of take care of all 3. The second is that because some of my clients have the choice of using a variety of people, I have to kind of create the feeling when people come to the website, especially as it relates to digital marketing and social media marketing, that, hey, this guy's the real deal. And so I publish content, and that's why I have a blog on it. And I have to generate leads. And that's why I have an email newsletter that you can subscribe to. So how do I do? Well, there's a service out there called Website Grader. Have any of you heard of it? Well, you can all go on it, and we're going to go on it now. It's right here, websitegrader.com. I don't know if you have iPads or anything, you can take a look at it. But what happens is that it tells you what's important in driving traffic to a website. So everybody following along? I want to make sure I'm going at the right speed. So I'm going to, if you go to websitegrader.com, and you can do this with your own website, I'm going to go, you put your website name in there. Well, we have a couple of these tools tonight. I hope it's fun and interactive for everybody. And then you say, I want to generate a report. And right now, it's scraping my website. Doing this thing, just da-da-da-da-da. Okay, today, my website gets a 90 out of 100. But whether I get a 90 or an 80 or a 70, what's probably more important is really what does a Website Grader, I should say, is a free service. It comes from a company called HubSpot up in Boston. Great company. They specialize in basically helping companies drive traffic to their website. And my grade isn't really important. What's important is what they say is important to driving traffic to a website, which I would imagine is a goal of all of yours. Am I correct? Yeah. Okay, great. So what does HubSpot say is important? Well, the first thing they say is important is that your website have a blog. And we'll talk a little bit about why that's important as we go down the HubSpot grading system. It's also important that your blog has some ways that if people want to send it out to other people, they can, which as you can see is happening here. It's also important because really what we're talking about with social media, and I mentioned this before, is you're really in the publishing business. You know, things like that I publish at a certain number of days, or that my headlines have a certain number of characters. It's like being a newspaper journalist, more than anything else. So these things they say are important, and I'm going to tell you why in just a second. So why they say it's important is because what's happening is that the search engines, and if you have a website, you want to be friends with the search engines. You are looking at a site that produces content on a regular basis, and they're saying, hey, I want to go there. You know, this is a website where something's happening. I want to find out, what that is. So what they do is it helps your visibility in search. And so as a result of writing blogs, my website is featured on almost 700 pages in Google. Now, I'm sure there's only about 5 trillion pages on Google and the internet, and 700 is probably just a drop in the bucket. But it's better than 5 or 7 or 10, and that is how people are going to find you, as we saw in the stats. 80% of the time is they are going to be looking for something, a need, that if your website is publishing content, and I'm very careful about the words that I use in headlines in the first paragraph, because I want them to be to feature the types of topics and services that my company's all about. What's also important is this number here, is the idea that if you're out there, there are other people in your area that probably will link to your site. In other words, they might comment on your blog, or they might actually, in their blog, kind of put a link that you could click on because they think your content is valuable. So so in my case, I have about 265 other sites that do that. And that's a value because to the search engines, it's saying, hey, this guy's an authority about certain topics. So that's helping my visibility quite a lot. So that's really, in this day and age, if you want to have traffic coming to your website, and your website is a source of revenue for your business, you really need to be doing something to make it a place where you're publishing content and fresh content on a regular basis. These days, you also want to make sure that your site can be viewed on a phone. That's important. And that your site has ways for people to get to know you on the social networks. Because, again, the one theme I want to keep saying tonight, because it's true, is people like to do business with people they know. And all of this stuff, if you strip it away, the blogs and the mobile and everything else, is just a way of saying that here's a way that people can get to know me a little bit better. So that's rule number 1. Be very clear why your site exists. There are like 250 million websites out there, but there really aren't a whole lot of reasons why they might exist. They're out there really to sell product off of, to either generate leads, to find prospects for your business. You want to be very careful how you're marketing your brand. It's not about how big your logo is or what your selling idea is. It's does your website feature the words that people might be looking for a product that fills your need. You want to know how customers find you. And I wanted to just ask one other question. It's very important to website marketing. I know it's going to be covered in another SCORE class in more detail, but it is important. Is that how many of you have an analytic tool like Google Analytics on your website? Great. How many of you view it on a regular basis, once a week? Great, great, great. Google Analytics, I really wouldn't go anywhere in terms of website marketing if you don't have an analytic tool like Google Analytics on your website. It really is the GPS for your website. And I would have to say that if you don't have it, it's like getting in a car where you don't know where you're going and saying, if I just keep driving, I'll get there. But if you do, it really is very helpful. And I'm going to try to tell you how much it helps me without getting too complicated here. Because one of the things people often ask me was, well, you must spend a lot of time doing this. You must spend, like, between all of this blog writing and publishing out on the social networks, it must take up a lot of time. And the answer is not really. It takes I put about 4 hours a week into this. And for me, 4 hours a week is a very reasonable investment for the amount of business that it generates. And the reason why I can do that is because of what I learned from Google Analytics. So I'm going to give you a little bird's eye view, a peek under the hood, if you want to keep the car analogy going, of what my Google Analytics dashboard tells me. Now, Google Analytics, I should mention, you can't just go on the web and look at my analytics. I'm sorry. It's password protected. It's unique. Each website, it's a free service, but each website actually has, it has to be hooked up. It's just very simple. It's just a simple kind of cut and paste job. But it is, every website has the ability to have one of these, and you really should have it. I'm going to tell you why it's so helpful to me, and why it helps me kind of manage my week and market my business on the web. So this is my Google Analytics, and the top bar kind of shows how many people visit my website every day and every month. It looks sort of like Campo Beach at high tide, doesn't it? But I have about 4,500 people visit this website over the course of a month. That's about 150 people a day. That's a pretty good number. But the reason that it goes up and down like this is not because of anything that I did. It's the way the audience use websites. This is the days of the week. And so every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday it goes up. Every Tuesday, Wednesday, every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday it starts to go down. I have tried to publish on certain days to sort of affect this. No good. So my readers are, and your readers too. I mean, this is a pretty common thing for any website. And as you can see, I published something on Monday. It got a pretty good pickup yesterday. So, but really why that's so valuable to me is that it tells me the days when I have to worry about publishing something and the days when I can take it easy. So, if without this, I wouldn't know when to publish. Now I've kind of worked out in my own way that usually over the weekend on a Saturday or Sunday morning, I spend a little time getting something ready so I can publish it on Monday. And then I kind of just let it do its thing. And then I kind of do it the next day. And it also tells me, this little chart here tells me also where my traffic is coming from, which is the third rule of the 6-step program, is to find out, because you want to know where your traffic's coming from so you know how to organize your time. So it tells me that half of my traffic comes from the search engines. I like that. That means that people are actually putting words in there and they're coming to my site. It tells me that about a quarter is coming to me directly. That means they're either putting my website in the URL or they're coming directly to the site. And about 25% is what they call referral traffic. Mostly this is from the social networks. So it also tells me, and it would tell you, exactly what are the keywords that people use to come to my website, who come to my website from search. And as you can see, as I mentioned at the beginning, I write a lot of case studies, and you can see the word case study comes through quite a lot. I don't know if you know a fellow managerial marketing guy named Peter Drucker. I mentioned Peter Drucker a lot in my blog, and you can see that it comes through. And actually, the types of clients that I would want to be familiar with Peter Drucker. So it's very deliberate. So I have a very good idea here. And so this is why I know how much time to put in and where to focus my attention. So I know you're here, a number of you are here for social media, and so I want to show you how the social networks, they all figure into everybody's site differently, but I'll show you how they figure into mine. So now I know where people are coming from. And here, I can see exactly what social networks they're coming from. So, most of it, as you know, in the first two is Google. The first one is Google. You can see that from, you can all read this, can't you? So you can see that it's Google. The second one that's information that Google just doesn't want to tell you. So they put it in parentheses, and it's more Google traffic. But this next one here is Twitter. T.co is Twitter. Now what's interesting is that the average person from Twitter spends 43 seconds. I mean, that's barely enough time to read a headline. So, and so I know, I mean, I appreciate that they're there because you know, that I know that they'll spread the word, but they'll never be clients, people who come from Twitter. But I do send out, as I mentioned to you, I send out a monthly newsletter, or a weekly newsletter every week, and which is where I get most of my business, which is no surprise because the people who are coming from Constant Contact are spending almost 9 minutes on the website. So this tells me pretty clearly, you know, what I need to, a lot of people sort of obsess about, am I posting enough on the social networks, am I tweeting enough? I don't know if any of you know about something called a cloud score, which is sort of, you know, your ability, somebody's already made a number to tell you whether you are an influencer or not. I don't care about any of that stuff, because I don't have to, because for me, nobody from Twitter is ever going to be a customer of mine. But people who read my newsletter, I worry about, you know, are they opting out? Do they read every week? I look to see who the open rates are, because I know that they're spending a lot of time and they'll likely maybe even refer someone. So really where I'm going with this is, as I mentioned, the idea of having some knowledge of how people are coming to your website is very important in terms of really being able to turn your website into something that's a business generator. So you can see from what I just mentioned that now I know who I want to attract. And now I've been able to create, just by looking at, you know, every once a week, an idea of what my scorecard should be for marketing my business. But above all, I want to just make sure that I'm putting out content to people that's interesting. So any questions on these steps? Do they make sense? Yes.
I had one question going back when you were measuring the analytics that you are an authoritative site. What's the data? I mean, is that just something determined by Google? I mean, are there other factors, industry standard factors, that are saying you are an authoritative site?
Well, they're actually measuring, that's a good question, in that they're measuring the sites that came to my site, and if those are authoritative sites, then my authority rises. So actually the authority rating, I hope I've explained this clearly, is not just who comes to your site, but who comes to the site of the people who come to your site.
Is it Google that's ranking them, though?
I'm sorry?
Is it Google that's ranking them?
Yes.
Who is? Okay. So
yes.
That's where that's generated.
Yep.
And then how do you find out who's authoritative?
Actually, on the website grader, they listed 10 of them. Okay. So actually, if you use the tool, and you know, they'll tell you how many people link in, and then which are the authoritative ones. Yes.
If you use your logo as your open screen,
right?
Does that record as a hit every time you open the screen?
Yes, it does.
So that could be very misleading.
Yes, it could, and probably not a good idea, because you know, people don't usually search for your logo; they search for a need that your business meets. So, it's actually good to have words that would be like your customers would probably find you. Yes.
In the prior slide, you sort of summed it up saying, right, now this is giving me, now I know where to focus my efforts. But don't you want to tweak that to where is the data coming from? In other words, it's kind of like you put the cart before the horse, the way I heard it. And you know, the numbers that you just showed up under the Google Analytics, right? Twitter was third, I believe, in that
right. Yes.
list,
Yeah.
right? You said you're not getting any customers from Twitter, but do you want to have
No, great question. I'm glad you asked it. Yes, they're valuable to me, because they spread, you know, everything is now I understand from that, relatively speaking, I very much value those people from Twitter, because I know that they're spreading the word. I know, but I don't necessarily, you know, I know where to spend my time. They'll be very valuable. In the idea of, I think I mentioned the term, that there are really kind of three categories that come to a website. There's the skimmers, the researchers, and the people who buy. They're skimmers, and in every sense of the word, and they're valuable skimmers, because they'll go out and tell other people that, you know, and so they all have a value, but it puts it for me in very much a relative proportion of what the value of each group is. So I hope I explained that.
So the value in this case of Twitter is that they're giving you some percentage of
Absolutely.
source traffic to your site.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll take it.
So you just, again, so I'm clear, are you then looking at this, you know what, I don't want Twitter people, I want more
No, I'm saying
campaigns.
I'm happy. I'm happy, to, but I know that I'm happy to have them. I'm glad that they're out there, but I just need to keep them in the area of they serve a purpose, which is to drive more traffic there more than they do anything else. I'll take one more question because I just want to be conscious of the time. Yes.
Can you tell who's a new customer and who's a repeat same person that's been
Yes.
back with
Yes.
you?
The analytics tell you that. Yes. I'm just going to go on, and we'll certainly have time to answer more questions. And actually, so getting to the subject of how some of the social networks might help you. About a year ago, the Harvard Business Review basically said that social media and the internet has changed the way we buy. Because what used to happen, if you look at that graphic on the left, it looks a little bit like a funnel, is that typically with any business, we would consider a wide range of products. We narrow our consideration frame down to a few, and then we make a decision. Sound like something that is the way you buy products? And now, and at that point, that's usually where our relationship with the manufacturer or the business ended. But now what they're saying is because of the internet and reviews and social media, when we buy a product, and I just want to ask you after I say this, if this reflects your opinion, but actually what we do is we ask others. I mean, how many of you have ever gone on a trip and looked at a review before you booked a hotel? Or on a vacation, or basically anything. And so now what they're saying, and not only that, but after you went on the trip or you stayed in the hotel, you actually told others about it. And maybe you told them on Facebook or Twitter or one of the other places where you might be, where your friends might congregate. And so what they're saying is that now both before and after we have experience with a product, we actually like to tell other people about it. And it's not just the fact that the internet and social media have made these outlets available. That's the way we are as human beings. We want to share our experiences with brands with others. So the way I look at it, before as we venture into the world of social media, is that if you're thinking about marketing on your business on the internet, it's you almost want to think about it from a standpoint of getting your feet wet, and starting to walk and run, and then going from there. And so really where I've tried to take you through up to now is the idea of crawling and walking. And the idea of understanding if you have a website for your business, which most of you raise your hand you do, why it exists, what you're trying to do, and that it's a desirable place to visit. Because when people on the social networks, if they're interested in you, they're going to go after that to your website to find out more about you, because of what I said at the beginning is people like to do business with people they know. And so from there, you want to start to build relationships with them, and as you start to get to know them and start to get comfortable with this, making your content relevant to them. And pretty soon, they'll start to do some of the work for you. So your best asset here is basically that you understand what it is about your business that makes it different, and how you can humanize who you are as a business owner with your audience. I'm going to take one of our clients to show you. In Westport, Connecticut, there is a woman by the name of Catherine Clear. She's a high-end interior decorator, and this is her website. And Catherine has a philosophy about interior design, which is that no matter what you do, what's important, what really, when you walk into a room and you get that wow factor, what happens is it's all about those little details that you might not notice individually, but they all add up. And so Catherine wanted to put her name out there, so she would get the same website grade that I would, but she doesn't have her blog front and center on her website. What happens is that you go to her blog and her social networks, but the interesting thing about Catherine is that she had an idea for who she wanted to be online. And she felt that that as an interior designer, she had a lot of great adventures. She had a great story to tell. The jobs that she did, the shows that she went to. She was one of a handful of people that was chosen last year to renovate the Governor's Mansion in Hartford as part of something called the People's Project. Just last weekend, she was part of the American Red Cross chapter designing a table for the where they converted one of the hangars in Westchester Airport into a kind of a fundraiser. So she had an idea that on social media and on the internet, she wanted to have this idea of follow the designer. So she has a blog, she has a Twitter, a Facebook account. But it's interesting that what she did and what we did with her was we wanted to find out how other interior designers position themselves on the internet. So when you took a look, for example, at my website, in order to convince companies, I have to produce a lot of content that makes them think I'm smart. But Catherine works in a different way. Catherine basically doesn't have to write a lot of content, but she has to have some really terrific graphics, there she is, that really kind of say what she's all about. This is her table that she designed for the American Red Cross and this is who she is as a person. And so this is how people get to know her. Everywhere she goes, that people say, you know, I really like your blog, because, you know, they really get an idea of who she is. It's very pictorial. And Catherine, being an interior designer, doesn't throw away anything. This same blog that she uses basically becomes an email. If it's a blog on Monday, is an email by Wednesday. It's really the topic of all her Twitter and Facebook posts. So she really has a content strategy. But she got there first by saying, how do I want to position myself? What's going to make my business interesting? What's going to humanize my business? Because people want to do business with people that they know. So how does social media help a business? I'm going to show you a little video. It's about 3.5 minutes of about 18 companies who've actually experienced ROI from social media, and here's what it is.
It takes my breath away, but I'm not living the way I ought to be. Check it out, there's surely something missing. I've got to move on before I hit the ground. I hear you calling. city living, it takes my breath away, but I'm not living the way I ought to be. Check it out, there's surely something missing. I've got to move on.
So let's take a few examples of companies that are doing this now, dive a little bit more deeply into them and see what really matters on these networks. And we'll do one for Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. But first, why is it happening? And really what's happened is that we are now spending more than half the time we're online on social networks. It's gone from, within the space of just about 2 years, it's gone from 15 minutes to 35 minutes out of every hour we're online, we're on one of the social networks. And this is an example of people who are searching the term social media right now. And you can see that basically it's kind of, this is an index from another free Google tool called Google Trends, where you can put in the search bar any word you want, and you can see what the trend is of people searching it. But you can see basically what this says is that social media is here to stay. So let's talk about Facebook. Facebook, it seems, has really kind of, just like I want to get views to my website, I think the way Facebook has sort of revolutionized things for businesses is that everybody wants to be liked. We want our businesses to be liked, we want to be liked, and I'm sure that, how many of you have read something or been online and somebody says, like us on Facebook? Why should we be like you on Facebook? When this question is asked, actually what motivates people to like a business on Facebook is that people feel that they're going to get something from that business. And so the number one answer when you said what has motivated you to like a business on Facebook is most people think that they're going to get a promotion or an offer or a discount. But the second most important thing is that they'll show their support for a business that does that. So what this chart is really saying is that if you show your customers some love, they'll like you back. And so really, for a lot of businesses, what's become important is to try to get as many likes as soon as possible. So this is one of our clients. They're out in San Diego, California. They make tortillas. They don't just make any kind of tortilla, they make fresh tortillas. They're almost cooked. You buy them in the refrigerated section of the supermarket. You go home and you put them in a pan, no oil or anything, for about 60 seconds, 30 seconds aside, and they taste like you just got them at a restaurant, a Mexican restaurant. They taste great, they're toasty, they're bubbly, and so we tried to, and we found that we had a fan base where people who tried this type of a product said once they tried it, they never want to go back to having a tortilla any other way. So we figured it was a great example to try to boost our likes. So we ran a couple of promotions with them, and these days there are basically a lot of tools that can be used. I put one up here called Wildfire app that anybody can just kind of log into and use, and we created these promotions. So when you went on their Facebook page, this would be the first thing that you'd see. And you could bypass it and go to the Facebook page, but if you wanted to enter, you not only could enter, but you could share it with your friends. And so, and what happened when you enter, of course, is that we got your email address, so we could kind of keep you in our customer base. That's all pretty clear? So what did that do for our business? Well, we started in September. There was basically about a little under 900 fans that we had. By October, when we ran a promotion that we gave away 3 iPads, we had over 6,300 fans. And 10,000 people actually, so 6,300 people liked us, and 10,000 people actually entered the promotion. And then we ran another promotion. So and what we also found, which more than paid for the price of the app that we used, is we got picked up by all of the sweepstakes, all the bloggers that are out there talking about what great sweepstakes there are on the internet. So the media value, the customers we got, Facebook likes, all generated a real good fan base. What we did with that fan, yes?
How much that cost?
The app itself was, all the apps and this technology was under $1,000. So, you know, there was manpower, of course, to use it, but had you gone to one of the online vendors like coupon.com or any of these other sources, it would have cost you $10,000 or $20,000. But the savings didn't really, that's just where the savings started. So since that doesn't include the media value of all the people that were telling us, that were saying that you got to go to this site and enter this promotion and hear about this brand. And also, it doesn't include the fact that we use that database of 10,000 people to do market research. So we saved, you know, tens of thousands of dollars on what would have been focus group research and all the things that companies like that used to do. So we thought, okay, we're kind of on a roll here. We're having some fun. What else can we do next? And so it was the end of their fiscal year, and they had 1,000 coupons for some free tortillas. So we said, let's give those away. So we decided to do that. And it was an experiment. We didn't know how long it would take to give away 1,000 coupons. It took 2 days. And actually, we gave away 3,000 coupons. And again, our fan base went up, and we had our database went up. And once again, we were picked up by all of the people that talked about what coupons were out there. So now we're figuring, we just finished the Cinco de Mayo promotion. We're now actually going to do another coupon promotion. The product's available in the state of California. So we're trying to drive people into a supermarket chain called Vons. I don't know if you're familiar with Vons. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use another tool. This doesn't cost anything to use, except our time. Very valuable commodity, I might add. But this is a service called Twitter Search. So we're going to have a Twitterland mystery shopper who's going to reward people who are in Vons with free Tortillaland Twitters. How are we going to find them? Well, actually, if you go to this website, which is called twitter.com/search, is that, and I type in Vons, California, they're actually identifying themselves all over the place. So I mentioned this also just because, you know, I'm trying to basically also talk about New Canaan and Darien, where all the sidewalk sales are about to start, and all the other things where people are going to raise their hand and say, I'm here. So for this particular brand, we can reach out to them and actually say to these people who are in Vons, would you like a coupon for some free tortillas? And what you could do also in your area or your shop when there's a high visibility event in your town is you can do the same thing. Because people are actually online telling people where they are, and it's an opportunity for you to have a one-to-one relationship with them. Any questions about any of that? Interesting? Let's talk about LinkedIn. We all know LinkedIn is a good place for resumes and letting people know about yourself, but it's also a great place for doing marketing because LinkedIn has discussion groups, they have forums, and for one of our clients, a B2B consulting firm in Cambridge, Massachusetts, it's a place to advertise and get people to come to their websites and their events. So another business, and for how many of you are B2B businesses? Great. So this is a business that probably is not too dissimilar from businesses that might be in New Canaan or Darien. This is a firm called Global Partners. They do global sales training. So companies hire them to basically get their sales force excited about whatever it is they're selling. And so like my site, like Catherine's site, this group also publishes blogs and emails, but they do something unique as well in that we usually select a theme, and then after we've published a certain number of blogs or emails on a certain theme, we did this one on the topic of ideation, we turn it into an ebook. And we make it something that people can download from the website, and each time that people download it from the website, we know where their email is and we know who they are. And we also do webinars that we advertise through LinkedIn on an events.linkedin.com. And so B2B or a company that does this type of work you know, it really takes a long time to reel in a client, as you can imagine. But when you reel in a client, their average consulting job is $40,000. So within the space of a year, it took us about 9 months. It took us about 8 months to do this. But by the end of the year, we had business from Sherwin-Williams and from Philips Healthcare, where it was very clear, because after we got the clients, it was that they had actually come to the website and learned about the company and downloaded things, and that's how we got them in as clients. So all of this came from the types of publishing vehicles that are available to you to do for your business, especially if you're a B2B business. We talked about blogs, which are becoming more popular. We write actually about 4 or 5 a week. And so they are actually becoming more of a fixture at companies. And actually, people are actually getting to know retailers' websites through their social networks before they actually come to the website. So once again, that idea of people like to do business with people they know is coming through where the social networks are fueling that. And actually, people are online looking at Twitter for products as well. And I want to talk about one of my favorite case studies. This is a fellow who has a burger restaurant in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. His name is Joe Sorge, and he has actually 3 restaurants, but we're going to talk about his restaurant, AJ Bombers, right now. And the story of this restaurant you're going to see through this video.
Hey, it's Chris Brogan from chrisbrogan.com with a kitchen table talk. I wanted to talk a little bit about AJ Bombers, and I'm here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and right at the start of the bar district, I guess it's called, and I'm at AJ Bombers, and we were just in a conversation. I said, stop, we have to do this on video. So tell who you are, and a little bit about this, because that's pretty cool.
Sure, my name is Joe Sorge, and AJ Bombers was built by Twitter. That is no lie.
So how often do people come in by way of Twitter? Like, what's the...
You know, we run daily specials for Twitter users, specifically, and I'd say probably 75% of our customers honestly use Twitter.
That's great.
And if they don't already use Twitter, when they arrive, we certainly encourage them to do so. It's even actually part of our menu, following us on Twitter, and truthfully, we've built quite a following. Certainly nothing compared to your following, the list of followers that you have. I think we're at about 1,400.
Wow.
But it's certainly what's gotten us where we are.
So, in the old days, business was always done just face-to-face. I mean, you just kind of wait around and hope somebody showed up at the door.
Right.
How important is your network, and how important is keeping sort of those relationships alive?
I would say it's crucial. If that network wasn't there, I truthfully wouldn't have a way to communicate with those customers every day. I communicate with them good experiences, bad experiences, all of them, truthfully. And I tend to, even if I'm not at this restaurant, I tend to watch my Twitter account while they're here, answering their questions, thanking them for coming in. God forbid they have a bad experience and I can fix it on the fly. But yeah, it's really been a big part of what we are and what we do.
So I just looked over Joe's shoulder, and I think I can zoom in on it. There's like Twitter graffiti.
It's everywhere. It's behind you as well. Honestly, look,
Iron Cupcake,
Iron Cupcake, Jumbo's actually one of our servers.
This is crazy.
Servership is certainly a huge part of what we built.
This is really nice. So you did one other thing I thought that was really telling. You recommended other restaurants in the area when you said you could swing by here as well. And that's pretty cool. So
Well, let's be honest. Those other restaurants that I recommended are also my restaurants. Now you could have noticed it when you saw the tweet, but that's absolutely true. We have a group of restaurants and we utilize Twitter differently for each one of those restaurants, and we utilize social media for each one of those restaurants.
So what are the other two? It's Water Buffalo and
Swig. It's handled as Swig Milwaukee and Water Buffalo, Water _
right, because some other jerk had Water Buffalo. All right, so motorcycle. Bizarre. Well, I'm going to get down to figuring out what I want here, which is essentially burgers, ginormous fries, and chips and stuff. So, Chris Brogan with a kitchen table talk. Come by chrisbrogan.com.
Joe actually was one of those people that I saw that video, I wrote about him because I was so impressed by not just what he did, but that really the way he used the medium, which was really almost like another pair of hands. I mean, he's one guy, and so how does he deal with all his customers? How does he put out a fire if somebody's had a bad meal? And so it was just really good, common sense customer relations that I saw there and wrote about it, and he wrote back, and we've become actually very good friends. And so the story of Joe's business is that just before this video was filmed, he was in a situation where he was opening up 3 restaurants in the worst time ever since the Great Depression to open up a restaurant. And he barely could kind of pay his bills. And so what happened one day is that he was online, kind of because no one was coming into his restaurant, and he discovered that somebody on Twitter, a restaurant reviewer, had said he has the best hamburger in Milwaukee. And so he looked at her, and at that time, I think she had 400 followers, which at that time was actually a lot. And so he thanked her. And all of a sudden, he started to see that people from Twitter were coming into his restaurant. And now he said he has actually, in that video, which is about a year and a half old, he says he had 1,400 followers. He has 28,000 followers right now. His restaurant, AJ Bombers, is actually a franchise all through the state of Wisconsin now. He actually, and he's just kind of an everyman if you get to know him. He actually did, he's not a techno guy, but he went on Foursquare, and he ended up having the most people in one day because he wanted, the whole idea of badges. And so he got the most people in one day to ever come into a restaurant from Foursquare. In fact, his competitors actually came to him, another rival burger joint came to him and said, we should petition the Food Channel to put us on a show called Food Wars. And so he reached out to his social networks, and they got on Food Wars. So, so it's just he's a great example. And actually what he does, because we stay in touch, is he gave me the idea for the tortilla promotion, because what he does is he goes on to Twitter search, and he goes on to the Milwaukee airport. He Twitter searches Milwaukee airport, and he lets people know that if you're in Milwaukee and you want a discount on a hamburger, just come to his restaurant. And that's how he gets customers. So he's just kind of learned to use a lot of tools that are out there for commerce reasons. Which is kind of the point, that even if you talk to the experts like Booz Allen, they say that social commerce, or commerce from social networks, is about to rise significantly over the next 3 or 4 years at a rate of about 50% a year. There's, just when you think that haven't we had enough of all these social networks, one new one comes on, and it turns out to be the fastest growing social network in history, and it's a network called Pinterest. It's a pin board. And what's significant about it is not only that it's growing very quickly, but it's 85% female. So a lot of these social networks are actually almost becoming like magazines. Facebook is the People magazine, LinkedIn is Business Week, Pinterest is the Ladies Home Journal, but they're actually becoming, the types of things where you want to think who are the customers you want to go after, and what are the demographics of them, and really almost establish a presence from there. And just to give you an idea of, Pinterest is like a pin board where you take, it's exactly what it says. It's, you take images and you place them on your site. And here's what somebody we know from our area, what her Pinterest site looks like, which is Martha Stewart. So celebrities are already embracing them too. So let me, any questions? Everybody good? Is this, yes?
Are there ever copyright issues that come up with any of this stuff when people are putting stuff up to information?
Yeah, there are image issues you have to be careful about, yeah.
You reference an article, or you put an article up there or something?
Yeah, I mean, if it's on the internet, I do all of my research from the internet. I always credit, where it comes from. So if it's out there, I certainly feel like I can use it with the right credits. I'll never put a graph up there without saying, where it's sourced. But in a way, if they put it, and in a way, they want that traffic too, because you're building their awareness. So images are a little, you have to be a little careful about. But actually, they're saying that journalists are now all using the internet, to do stories. It's made it a lot easier and faster, and certainly that's become a tough business. So it's used quite a lot in that area. And any other questions before? Yes.
in all of this, it seems that the actual web design for the business is of much less importance than a few pieces of content.
I agree, yes.
I mean, it's the
Yeah, I think, you know, you have the opportunity to have people find you the way they might be searching for you. So I do think content is a priority, yes. Any other questions? One of the areas we didn't talk about is social networks. Actually, this is another example of a company that used Facebook and used that app that I talked about for promotions. And it's I put it on here because I didn't know if anybody had an e-commerce business that's in the audience. But this is a company, an e-retailer, and they're called Melrose Jewelers. And I'm using this example because it sort of shows where a lot of this is going. It's not just actually even promotions, but promotions that sort of humanize your brand. And so Melrose Jeweler actually ran a Facebook promotion, and they had $2 million in sales in 3 months. And how did they do it? Well, they did the same app that we use for Tortilla Land, but they're a very different business than selling tortillas. Actually, the average watch they sell goes for $5,000. You have to sell a lot of tortillas to get to that amount of money. But so you can see how if they sold enough $5,000 watches, they get to $2 million. But what they did when they promoted themselves was they did something that was in the character of their brand. First of all, if you liked them when they ran this promotion, they would automatically, just by liking them on Facebook, when you actually went to go buy a watch, you get $100 off. And then what happened was the promotion was actually a quiz, where you kind of filled out, and there'd actually be a little formula that would run, and it would tell you that you were like the James Bond Britley guy. And so you were actually that much more, you know, closer to the brand, because they sort of created a personality for you and for the watch that you might buy that just made it a little bit more, created a little more brand affinity. And then if you actually bought the watch and took a picture of it and put it on Facebook, they gave you another $150 off. So they started from an area of well below $1 million and got to $2 million in 1 quarter by doing that, but doing it in a way that really kind of was in keeping with what the character of their brand was. A company that used YouTube. And this is a company that makes blenders. Actually, they make blenders that actually were sold not to consumers, but to the B2B area. Starbucks uses these blenders to blend their coffee beans. And they decided in 2007 that they wanted actually to go directly to consumers. So they didn't have a whole lot of money, so they decided to make these YouTube videos for about $1,000 each, featuring their chairman. And within 2 years, their company sales overall went up 700%. So how did that happen? Well, take a look at one of the videos.
Will it blend? That is the question. And here we are in front of the AT&T store. And I'm here to keep up with the latest technology. I'm here to pick up my iPhone 3G. And I'm not the only one. Hey, can I see your iPhone?
No, you're gonna blend it.
Not me? Ah, this is great. I can't wait to get back to the office and try out my new phone. Got my new iPhone, so I'm not gonna need the old one anymore. So I'm gonna blend it. The new one is so cool. It's so much faster. It's going to keep me more organized. With all this technology, I won't forget anything. Now I'm gonna blend my old phone. I think I'm gonna press the smoothie button.
Said, you know, by brand, but I do understand the thinking behind it. What they say is that people who like a brand are that much more likely to recommend a brand to a friend. I might have my percentages wrong a bit, but I think it's something like, you know, you're 48% more likely to recommend a brand to your friend, and the Word of Mouth Association has even quantified that somebody who likes your brand is worth on average $70 a year. So I'm not sure, I'm sure there's, like everything, a wide variety by business, but the logic of somebody who likes you is going to be more inclined to recommend you would be, it makes sense to me.
Okay.
Yes?
Yeah, I just learned recently, if you have your personal page, your Facebook page,
Right.
and then if you want to offshoot and have your business page, as soon as you get 30 people liking that,
Right.
there's a whole bunch of statistics you then have access
Right,
to.
Facebook Insights, yes.
Of who likes it, and then how many people then would see anything that you put there, how many of their friends
Right,
this
right.
exponentially would reach.
Right, so there's a whole thing, to answer that question, is there now for Facebook, like there was for Google, Facebook is actually trying to get some analytics to measure the types of people who come to your Facebook page. And like you said correctly, is you have to have 30 people who like you in order for them to start measuring you. But there are that. And there are other services actually too that take the people who like you and they actually have discovered how valuable they are by how often they post on your Facebook page. So there are those too. Yes.
Rob, how are you? What tools are you using? If a specific tool, and let's just use Google. How are you collecting that into a database? What's that process that you're doing to graph it?
Well, actually, for my marketing, certainly from my emails, I have the list of people who are in my database and who open my emails on a regular basis and who click through, and so I use that. You know, all of the Google stuff I can also do by date, so I can kind of see there. But really, to be honest with you, I'm doing it by eyeball. You know, I'm really sort of, I'd have to say, and I do it for 6 other companies. So almost every morning, it's like the routine of reading the New York Times online and checking this, you know, the 6 clients that we do the same type of work for to just make sure that their business is okay. So it's actually just become something I check like I read the newspaper.
So I mean, are you taking an email address and just putting it into a contact list, or really it's like the creation of the database? I mean,
Yes, I am.
It's so big. And it's growing so much.
Well, it's not that big.
We should be so lucky.
Right.
I mean, but at that level, I mean, that's really what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm kind of seeing who would be the people who open most often, and I reach out to them. You know, I mean, some of them are my friends, and it's not like it's not a hard thing to do to sort of say, ask how you're going, and it really has become like an online business card. So, I hope did I answer your question?
Absolutely.
Yep. Yes.
Rob, if you wanted to live well off of, this area of business right now, would you go with content development or distribution network development?
Well, I think it really has to start. Every business is different, so you have to ask yourself, what is the goal of my business? You know, for me, the goal would be to get clients that would want my services or our services on a retained basis because they see a value to what we do. I do want to get company consulting assignments and all that. So, you know, I think it starts with what's the expectation, what's the goal for what your business is, and then how many people do you have to reach, you know, to get people who are going to go to use your service. For my service, it's really very low. It's probably like less than 1%. But you know, if I was a local retailer or somebody who had had been in business longer, you know, it probably would be higher. So I think to answer your question, it really is kind of understanding your business goal, how much you have to how much traffic you have to drive, what type of relationship do you have to basically do what you do offline, online. Yes?
How frequent do you post your blogs?
Once a week.
And how long did it take you from the beginning to gain traction?
It takes me about an hour and a half to write them. So I usually, as I mentioned, when you saw the Campo Beach, you know, so really I find actually the downtime over the weekends, because I'm not having to worry about or work on anybody else's business, is that I've just learned to kind of put an hour and a half in there someplace to write them and get them out and then get on to other things during this. So it becomes almost like a routine.
To get like responses from people when you feel like you're actually having.
Actually, just a couple days. And in fact, they lose their freshness very quickly. So emails as well. You know, if you're not going to No one's, if they haven't opened them in 2 days, they're not going to open. So so it becomes a little bit, it almost starts to become something that's Pavlovian after a while. You do it, you know you're either going to get a response or you're not, and then you just wait and do it again. So, yes.
You mentioned that you use weekly newsletters as one of your most effective ways of getting most of your clients.
Right.
How do you most efficiently get those emails?
How do I send them out, or?
How do you actually develop your database? How do you grow your
I use a
database?
service called Constant Contact.
Correct, right. That's the distribution network.
Right.
How do you actually develop your database of emails?
I just have an Excel sheet that I know who's in there, and I know who opens them most often.
Right, but developing that Excel spreadsheet. How do you use social media to get those emails? Or
Right.
how did you leverage?
No, I do it manually myself. I hope I mentioned it. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I apologize. I get it in. Well, one is they're people that I've known for time, but mostly they come from. Thank you for clarifying that for me. I appreciate that. But mostly they actually come from this little box here on the right. So on my website, you can go in there, just put your name in, and you'll be on there. And I would guess I get about 10 or 15 a week. And I just want to be careful that I don't. I also look to see, because I certainly respect people's privacy, and first thing on the email is that you can opt out at any time. So I'm sensitive to anybody what the opt-out rate might be. So did I answer your question?
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, great. Sorry it took a little while. Yes. I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Sorry, okay, my mistake. Yes.
Do you repeat emails?
No.
Same email?
No.
You never do?
No.
Ron,
Yes.
QR codes, you didn't talk at all about QR codes driving to your site.
Yeah, actually QR codes are, we're all familiar with those, right? Those little things that what you do is you put your smartphone in front of it, you get...
No.
Okay, okay. Let's see, where's my phone? So, uh-oh, my phone. Okay, so it's a code. I think you've seen them. They're a little square box. They appear on a lot of products. And what you do is, if you have a smartphone, you do need a smartphone to use it, like an Android or an iPhone. You put an app on that's called, one of their things go like barcodes. There's one in the back. If you haven't seen it, and actually, so you put what it really is it's a link to the website. So, or wherever they want to take you online. So, if I was in Franco's, in front of Franco's, and I saw a QR code, so I wanted to see what they were doing, so I just went on, I put my phone there, and I was sent to a website destination. They are very useful. We use them. Their usefulness is really they can tell you where somebody used it from. So if you have we use it for the tortilla company because actually there's usually a high correlation between people who would take the trouble to use a QR code and people who would buy your product. I mean, you've got to be interested enough in a brand if you're going to actually go through that exercise. So we actually use it to try to see what stores people might be using it in, and then how we're doing in those stores. So it's a way of it's a way of getting more information about a product on your smartphone. It is, in terms of what it actually is it's basically a link to a web destination, and it's usually used to try to get more product information about a particular brand. And there's a higher likelihood, you should pay attention to them because the analytics that will come back will tell you where it was used exactly, and obviously that might be somebody who's gone through that extra step, more interested in buying your product. Is that?
Yeah.
Great. Yes.
So, in terms of social media, like, you obviously can't, like on Twitter or Facebook, say, use my product, buy my product.
Yeah.
It's got to be a soft sell, right? So, that's the creative part, is figuring out what you're going to say on Twitter or what you're going to say on Facebook that's a soft sell that actually gets them to know you. So what would your most creative, or what would you, I know it depends on the product, like if you're offering food, you might give recipes, so you could say, oh, they use that tortilla.
Right, right.
So let's say you're a service like you, so what are you talking about on your blog that subtly sends it back to what you're actually selling?
Well, just using myself as an example, I usually put the headlines of the blogs that I write with a link to them. So that
Well, what are you talking about?
This week I talked about some of the tools that people, now there's these dashboards that can show you, companies invest a lot of money in them, just how many people tweet and like you. And so I wrote about what I thought were mistakes that people make when they use them, and I offered up some good ideas. So I write about those types of topics. As I mentioned, people love case studies. They love to hear stories. So I frequently write about those. I always, and it's not really, and I actually try to actually say thank you to 3 people for every time I tweet. I also read other people's and that I know I might be interested in talking to. I actually, it didn't go anyplace, but just to give you an idea of how I try to merchandise myself in this medium, I actually was online one day and I saw the VP of Marketing at Ford had written a blog, and I liked it, and I wrote, but I thought that he didn't really, there's another whole area that he could have gone into it, and so I credited it with him. And then I wrote my particular take on it, and he wrote me back. And as I mentioned, we now know each other. We've linked it up on anything. It's not something that I've been able to. It's not a relationship that I can take to the bank yet. But I never would have met that person through email or phone call or anything like that. So it's really a way of trying to just develop relationships. I hope that example just illustrated a way from a professional sense to try to develop a relationship that you never could have developed through an email or from the phone. Yes?
I like the name of your company. I'm just curious, with all the importance of search engines and finding a name.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about that if your company doesn't have a name?
Well, I never use my name because no one's ever, people who come to it, so I actually I'm glad you like it. But I don't actually use it other than in the, when I write, because I don't think people are looking for my company. They're looking for an unmet need that my company might fill. I'm glad when they find out who I am that they might like it, or they think it's cute, or it sort of says what we do, which is try to put a lot of what's out there on the internet that people are saying to work for somebody. But I actually rarely use it as a search word. I know you're looking at me like, why do you do that?
No, I'm wondering how applicable that is then. If people you want your name to be pretty relevant.
I do, yes. But I think that anybody will, in my case, and maybe, I'm not a household word by any stretch of the imagination. So I think most people, will probably have a need for a product or for a service that I might provide. And then they'll get to know my name afterwards. It probably won't work in reverse. So, yes?
You do a weekly blog. You also do a newsletter?
Well, actually, it's this. I am on the Thanksgiving leftover school of content marketing. I never throw anything away. So, actually, my blog is actually it's a blog on Monday. It's a newsletter by Wednesday.
Different audience?
Yes, actually, it is because the blog is actually going to an audience that probably doesn't know who I am, and the email is going to somebody who is somebody that I know.
So the blog is posted online. You have to find it and read it yourself, but the newsletter.
Well, as the lady just mentioned before, I'm out there, letting people know on Twitter and Facebook it's out there. So I'm my own publishing vehicle in that.
Right, but the email, the newsletter gets emailed.
Yes, it does.
Okay,
Yep.
so that's a difference.
10 o'clock every Wednesday. Yeah.
AM?
I'm sorry?
AM or PM? 10 o'clock AM?
AM. Yeah. They say that, just like you saw with blog traffic, that that people open more emails on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, which makes sense. They're not at work over the weekend, and Monday their emails are clogged, and Friday, if they can get away, they're not going to open up something that's not work-related. So it's very deliberate. Yes.
When you refer to the people who aren't looking for your company, they're looking for an unmet need.
Yes.
Does that mean then
critically important.
That's more important than the name of your company, because that will take them to your website.
Exactly. I mean, as I said when I used the example to prove just that. When I went to look for a bike, I could have typed New Canaan Bike Shop, but I wanted the best deal on a bike under $1,000 I could find. And if I had to go 30 miles to get it, that was not a big deal. So it was more, you know, the words that I used had nothing to do with the town that I lived in or the retailer site.
And the Google Analytics breaks down.
They tell you, yeah, like the top dozen words. Yeah. Yes.
Do you ever guest blog on other sites?
Yes, I do. Yep. Yeah, a couple of the people that I teach with, you know, some have written books and some have pretty high traffic blogs, and so I do it for theirs too. Yeah. But I don't throw anything away. I'll guest blog for them on Monday, and it'll be on my blog on Tuesday. So. There are actually contracts that you have about guest blogging. There's a whole, you know, way you have to do it so you can drive the most traffic to the person who's willing to sponsor you. But so yes, I do.
So you can backwards link to your...
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Are there any statistics on like how much is too much, where you actually turn someone off if you're sending too many emails and having to call you?
Yeah, good question. You know, I would never do it more than, I guess I knocked that out, sorry about that. I would never do it more than once a week, and if I saw that people were unsubscribing, because I can see that, I would stop, you know, I would make it even more frequent. It becomes a little bit of a matter of taste, you know, and really, again, what your goals are. But yeah, I'd say, you know, in that area, since you mentioned the emails, I would never go probably more than once a week. Yes?
Is there any more weight given to media attention as opposed to keywords?
What do you mean?
If there's an article about the company or the business in a magazine or newspaper, does that draw more attention on a search than the keywords that might be on your site?
Well, it really also, you know, it depends on what your goal is. If it, I mean, your site's going to get traffic from people coming to it, and so if you're running an ad and they can click on it, you know, and come that way, then that's a source of traffic. So it really, but that's an investment versus a keyword that's free. Yes?
Are the keywords that you want, do they need to be in a certain part of your website, or does it not really matter where they are? Just give you the home page?
Yes, that's a good question. They should actually, the best place for them actually is in the URL, believe it or not, of your website. So, because so usually it's in that area and in a very prominent place on the page. So that if you could say, what's the name of your company?
It's Minuteman Land Services.
And what do you sell?
It's landscaping.
Okay. So if you had a sign that said Minuteman, was it? Minuteman Landscaping, and then, you know, .com/best landscaping in Fairfield County, you know, that the search engines would pick up those exact words. And so if that was in the title of your URL, which you could just do, a web developer could do that very easily in a way that, you know, that it would show up. And so that would be very, do I have that right, Amy?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much for your time.